Hi, it's Janet and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make this Waterfall St. Patrick's Day card. This interesting design is created out of basic shapes in Cricut-St software. So come along with me and I'll show you how you can create your own waterfall card. It's actually easier than it looks. Alright, so here I am in Design Space and I'm inserting shapes. First thing I'm creating here is the card base or representation of that base at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. I'm copying that and then using that to create the mat that's going to sit on top at 4 5 1/4 inches. And I color that orange or yellow really to represent the real pieces of paper I'm going to use. This next one that I'm working on is creating the waterfall mechanism, the long narrow piece that the square shapes sit on to create the waterfall effect. This is a base of 2 3/8 by 8.75. And then I'm going to be putting a circle at the bottom of that to create the tab where the button is. So once that shape is created, I overlap that about 1 inch to 3/4 inch from the bottom here. And once that's in place where I want it, I go ahead and lasso the whole thing together and weld it. There you go. And that creates one large piece. The next thing I'm doing is moving this next to the ruler and inserting a score line. And I'll copy and paste this several times. I actually need 5 of them. But the first thing I'm going to do is place that score line at the top. And it needs to be about 1 3/4 inch from the top of the waterfall base. So I've created all my lines that I need here. And then I'm going to use that ruler to help me measure 1/8 of an inch ticks at a time to get it where I need to be. So there's the 1 3/4 inch, and then the next one's going to be 5/8 of an inch from that one, and this one is 5/8 away from the next, and so on. By being right next to the ruler here, I can actually count these little ticks and get it pretty close. Okay, so now that that's done, I'm grouping the score lines with the piece so that it is one. And then I can double check that my base card fits the waterfall, and it does. The next thing I need are the squares that are going to go on these score lines. So create a square. This is going to be a green card base, and it is a piece that's 2.375 square. The next thing that will sit on top of that is a double layered mat that I'm going to get from a Cricut Access cartridge. This is a subscription within the Cricut Access called Elegant Edges. And once I get into Elegant Edges, I'm going to filter for square because I want that square shape. And there's my image that I'm going to choose to use. Now this is a 3-layer. I'm going to get rid of the top because that's where the cut is for the flower, which I don't want. And then I'll color these pieces to match my project. So yellow on the top, and I'm going to make white on the bottom. And then we'll make sure it fits the green base. And I ended up settling on here 2.26 inches for this shape. And you can see that fits pretty well. Then it's a matter of copying and pasting this. I actually need 4 of them. And then I'm just double checking to make sure that it fits my waterfall mechanism, which it does, so that's all good. This next piece is the bar. It's going to be shaped 2.26 by, excuse me, 1/2 inch by 3 1/2 inches. And this sits at the bottom of the waterfall mechanism and holds things in place so that when I pull the tab, the waterfall is actually created. And that'll make more sense when you see it put together. So really that's all the pieces that I need. I did delete the white card base because I didn't want to cut that. Now take a notice here, once I get to the white, you're going to see that, oh, we've got fold lines there, or the score lines. What I needed to do was attach these score lines to the card base, and that way they'll stay with the piece when it's actually cut. So now we will look at it again, and now the score lines are there with it. I separated the bar enough so that the score lines don't go on top of the bar, because obviously I don't want the bar to have any lines. And then I've adjusted the rest of this to kind of fit the paper that I had available, which I use scraps a lot, so I had specific idea of what I needed, and I put the pieces there to match it. So that's it. I went ahead and cut it, and we'll be putting the piece together next. Okay, here I am with the waterfall mechanism, and although the Cricut Explorer put in the score lines, you could see it's not really very deep. So I always take my pieces to my scoring tool that I do on the Explorer and just put the creases in again following the lines to make sure that they are nice and crisp. Then it's much easier to fold these over and use the brayer tool that I have here to make really good creases for scoring. Now there were 5 lines, so I'm just folding this over 5 times and using the scoring tool, or sorry, the brayer, in order to get those nice crisp creases. And these lines are what I'm going to use to guide where we put the squares of the waterfall. Now here I am creating one of the squares, and the base of that is that green kind of liney looking pattern paper, and then on top of that we've got a double matted Cricut cut in the shape of a stamp. So we have the yellow on top of the white. Okay, so I've gotten the 3 done, and next I'm going to do the piece that has the sentiment on it. And it says, "'Tis better by far at the rainbow's end to find that gold with the heart of a friend." And that is something I printed on the paper using my Canon printer. And what I'll do then is start attaching those double mats to the green card base. And once that's done with all 4, then I'll be ready to start putting the waterfall pieces together and showing you how that works. Now I gotta tell you, I'm not a huge fan of stickers, but once in a while they work pretty well, and this is an example. I found these really cool St. Patrick's Day stickers at the Dollar Tree in my area for $1. There's 29 of them. They're nice because they're embossed, very heavily embossed actually, and they have nice metallic trim to them, and they were the perfect size for this waterfall card and the squares that I'm using on it, so they turned out pretty nice. Now the 4th square, you remember, had my little poem on it, and I decided that it looked a little plain all by itself. So I attempted here to put on a little accent of a couple coins, but that darn thing did not want to stay where I put it, so I had to get out my tweezer and show it who was boss. So anyway, once I got that to stay where I wanted, it worked out pretty well, and I was happy with that. Now the next thing we need to do is attach that bar to the waterfall mechanism, and working on the straight edge of the mechanism, you'll want to attach that bar so that it's flush with the straight edge there, and you'll center it as best you can. In other words, the waterfall mechanism centered across the bar so that you have an even amount on each side. And then once that's folded over, you can kind of test the waterfall, which is what I'm doing here. Now it can go right onto the card base, and I'm going to attach the bar and the whole waterfall mechanism really by putting in brads. And I had marked my brad holes with pencil on the bar, so I knew where to put that. And once those holes were punched, then I could go ahead and put in the brads. Now once you get the brads in place, then you can test your waterfall mechanism, because it's essentially ready to go except for attaching your squares. And you can see here I was testing that out, and it was working pretty well. Now the next thing we can do then is put the squares on, and the last square you put adhesive on the entire bottom piece and attach it to the mechanism, and then from that point on you just put glue on the very edge, top edge, and align it to each score line. So like I'm showing here, I just put that adhesive toward the top and align it to the top of that score line, or really right at the bottom of it. You don't want it right on the line because then it won't fold or won't move properly. And you keep going until you get to the top like I am here, and then you're ready to pull it. And look how nice that works. Now to add a little bit more interest, I took one more of these stickers, which was the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, which I thought was probably kind of cool touch, being you can't see it when it's closed up, but when you pull it, you have that surprise at the end, and that's the pot of gold. for our waterfall. And I really liked how that turned out. And you can just, fold these edges again, and the more you fold them and push down, the easier the mechanism will work. But you can see it really didn't take much to get the whole thing working really quite nicely. So the hard work is all done, and what we're going to do here is just attach that base to our larger card base, which again is an A2 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch base. And we're in good shape. The only thing we really have left to do at this point is to attach our button. So I have taken a piece of thin green ribbon with some gold edging and used my needle and really just sewed it on, kind of similarly to how you would on a piece of material. Tied my bow on the top of it, and you always have a little more ribbon that you need to end up with. So once that's tied and you've got the ribbon where you want it, you can just simply shorten up the tails to the right length so that it's even and it looks good. So there I am doing that. The green and gold ribbon really worked out well for the St. Patrick's Day theme. And that's it. Here's the finished card one more time. If you enjoyed seeing how this card was put together, please make sure you hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss any future videos that I do. Until then, I hope you have a great week and keep crafting.